I've been playing Duel Links since 2017, and it only ever got more and more fun as time went on to me, but I would be lying if I said I've been happy with everything that's happened and everything that's been a part of the game throughout the years. Even though I really do love Duel Links and always will, if you love something, you gotta be willing to admit both the good and the bad. Just a quick warning though, this video is gonna have a lot of negativity in it, so be prepared for that. First of all, I do want to give credit where credit is due. As time has went on in this game, it has gotten easier and easier for new players to get into it. Right now, if you make a new account, you'll get a bunch of dream tickets, you'll be able to get a bunch of box chips, and you'll have a bunch of gems to get you started on making your first deck, and grinding for gems is super easy when you're new. It only gets harder the more you play. The fact that gem grinding gets harder the longer you play is something a lot of people don't like about the game, but to me, I feel like it makes sense. You want new players to be able to get the cards they need, but if you give players so many gems that nobody ever needs to spend money, then the game isn't going to be profitable, and the game will have to get shut down. But we are given a lot of gems in Duel Links as long as we don't try to spend them on everything. You really can be free to play in this game, but if you want to have a huge collection of decks, that's when being free to play isn't going to work anymore. The game lets free to play players exist, and you can be competitive as a free to play player, but the dolphins and whales of the game that are willing to put some dough in will keep the game alive for everybody by keeping the game profitable. This system's fine for a free-to-play game. I'm sure plenty of people would want it to be cheaper, but let's be honest guys, everybody wants everything to be cheaper, even me. Unless something's completely free, people are gonna complain for it to be cheaper regardless. But the way that it is for free-to-play players makes it so that free-to-play players always have to make sure they're making good decisions. If they use their gems in a way that doesn't benefit them, they can't take that back, can't get any of the value back that they lost. Those gems are far in the wind now. Master Duel doesn't reimburse players for gems they've spent. However, they can convert their cards into CP that they can use to help them get other cards. They aren't getting their full value back, but they are at least getting something back. There's nothing like that in Duel Links, so you really have to be careful as hell with how you spend your gems. Because of that, most free-to-play players are gonna avoid decks that require multiple boxes to obtain. So if they see a box that has all of the cards a deck needs in it, then they'll feel more inclined to jump in. A new deck for them is gonna give them a fresh competitive kick. Most of the time this happens in Duel Links, it's pretty good. Like 10 Ys coming to a mini box. You could own the whole deck by going through that mini box 3 times and spending a single UR dream ticket on Baxia, or going through that box with gems a single time. Even better now with Unchained, you can play a fully competitive pure Unchained deck just by going through its mini box 3 times. Now and then though, Konami sees green. They drop an archetype into a box and let it sit there for a bit, letting people invest in it, then they'll drop another product soon after that has support for it. Now all of the people that invested in that first product will have their investment completely invalidated unless they also invest in the new product. I understand that not every deck type is going to be available through a single box, but why bait people like that? If you just release both products at the same time, then people know that if they want to get a piece of the theme from one product, they also have to go into the other, and then they can make their decision from there. When Shadows was dropped in a box, people were excited for a new deck that only needed one box. You waited, then you dropped support in a selection box that was so vital for the strategy that if you didn't play it, then you were simply suboptimal. It's even worse that it was a selection box, but I'll get back to that. Another example is when Crusadia was added to the game. It was another deck you could get entirely using one box, though it wasn't all that competitive when it dropped, so a lot of people felt like skipping it would be fine. The very next main box that came to the game gave a single solitary support card that made the deck competitive just by itself. Only one card, and you have to go through a whole ass other box to get it. You couldn't just release that single card alongside the rest of the deck. You had to make it needlessly more expensive when it could have just been released in the same box. If you've been playing for a while, you know this type of thing happens all the damn time. It's these little decisions that have no purpose other than greed. You try to make good decisions as a free-to-play player, but Konami keeps making it so decks that could have been cheap are instead needlessly expensive just because they wanted to put a single card for a deck in a whole ass other box that has nothing to do with the deck. The fact that they do this by itself is already greedy as hell, but the fact that they do it with selection boxes too is especially weird. Selection boxes are almost entirely reprints, however, they have exclusive cards that you can only get from those boxes. But these boxes have a limit on how many packs you can get from them with gems, and the rest have to be bought with money. But if you wait about 9 months to a year, then those exclusive cards become available in regular boxes. Sometimes these cards are support for deck types, so basically, if you play those deck types, you won't be able to play them optimally for potentially a whole year unless you pay with money, not gems. At least in those cases, when they come to a regular box, they often come with more support cards to make the deck more relevant again. That doesn't always happen though, and it's shitty that they made people wait for a card that wouldn't even be played when they get access to it. Other times though, they put a card in a selection box that isn't just generic, but is one of the best cards in the whole game, to the point where if you don't have it in your collection, your personal competitive viability is seriously crippled. The first time this happened was with Book of Moon. This card was by far the most important card in the whole game for the entire year that it was paywalled. That meant that access to competitive play was paywalled for a year. There were rogue decks that didn't use the card, but these are rogue decks. Every single meta deck was playing this, and most other decks were also playing this if you owned it. And while there were budget alternatives to this card, none of them could stand up to the value of it. Konami willingly shafted free-to-play players. Since then, it hasn't been as egregious as that. However, it has been close, with Crackdown and Ice Dragon's Prison being incredibly important cards to own for many decks. However, it wasn't as bad since there were plenty of meta options that didn't use them. Paywalling cards to a TCG player might seem funny, because if you play the TCG, you don't just get free cards for showing up and playing. You even have to pay a small tournament fee just to play. But Duel Links is a game you can download for free, and you can obtain gems for free, and gems are used to obtain packs without spending money. So in a system like that, including paywalls at all is scummy. But locking competitive cards behind them is even more scummy because it locks players out of competitive play. Structure decks aren't as expensive as selection boxes. However, you can only ever get one copy of them with gems, and the other 2 copies that you will certainly need to be able to play the deck properly will cost you money. Realistically, structure decks always need you to buy them 3 times in order to play the decks they support. So it always felt weird to me that you could only get 1 copy with gems. Like, you're almost pretending that you didn't paywall it, when that is exactly what it is. In Master Duel, you can get 3 copies of a structure deck using gems, but for some reason in Duel Links, you can only get 1 copy using gems. If you do have a little bit of money to spend, that's alright, since it is fairly cheap. But some players don't even have a little bit of disposable income, so they can't afford this. It's so cheap anyway that I feel like they should just have an option to get 3 copies with gems. But then they also release a bunch of structure decks that aren't even self-sufficient. They get further supported in a box, meaning that there's a bunch of cards in a box that will be completely useless to you unless you have money to spend on structure decks. And the cheapness of the structure is essentially a lie, because in order to play it optimally, you also have to go into a box. Keeping all of these things in mind, if you know all of these things as a free-to-play player, you can try to avoid these things by waiting to spend your gems until a few weeks after a new product comes out, so that you don't get caught off guard by any greedy tactics. By doing this, you'll also get to see how competitive the deck you want to get is, to see if it's even worth investing in the first place. If it turns out to be a competitive deck, then it's usually going to be worth it, but then sometimes a deck being competitive makes it a bad investment. When a deck is too powerful, Konami does something to nerf the strategy to make it less oppressive, and a lot of the time the deck is going to remain playable afterwards, so your investment is safe and you can still play the deck, just not to the same power as before. A lot of the time though, they overdo it. They release a deck so overpowered that it's the unquestionable best deck in the game, and then they don't just nerf it, they obliterate it to the point that playing it is pretty much a guaranteed loss for you. You could say, oh man, they accidentally dropped the deck to be too powerful, so they had to kill it. First of all, them dropping it to be too powerful made competitive people with money buy the deck, so they got a cash injection from dropping a deck too powerful. For this to be an accident, it's a pretty convenient accident for Konami. And even if it were an accident, they don't have to kill the deck in order to fix the problem. With the way that Duel Links limited system works and the skill nerfing works, there are so many ways to hit a deck to a point where it can still be good without being broken. But so often they choose to make decks completely unplayable, completely invalidating the investment of the players that got it. So as a free-to-play player, you have to be cautious. You have to learn how to see whether a deck is going to be competitive and therefore worth investing in. But you also have to learn to see whether a deck is too competitive and therefore not worth investing in. And you aren't just locked into what decks are good within your budget, but also what are good investments. Luckily, it's actually more often that a cheap deck is good to invest invest in than otherwise. But having to keep these things in mind is a skill that you don't join the game with, and that the game doesn't help you to learn. You need other people to guide you, and you could blame the game for not teaching these things, but I feel like it's better to want Konami to just stop doing greedy ass shit. Not gonna lie, there have been times where a deck was pretty competitive, and it was competitive for a while, but due to power creep, the deck was beginning to fall off, and for some reason, Konami decided to nerf them into unplayability anyway. They weren't even problematic decks anymore, if they ever were in the first place, but they got killed regardless. Being somebody that very much enjoyed some of these decks, it made me feel mad as hell, and I still got some bitterness about it, especially since I grinded for those decks with gems, believing that they wouldn't be hit, since they weren't powerful enough to get hit, especially not hit enough to get destroyed by a ban list. I feel like I could rant all day long about all of the greedy things Konami's done in Duel Links, but honestly Duel Links has also done a lot of positive things, and as time goes on, things do get better and better for free-to-play players. Box chips, more frequent Dream Ticket releases, deck building boxes and pickup boxes, the fact that more and more deck types are available through a single box these days, it would be disingenuous to act like these good things don't exist. Things are getting better, but I am worried that the other things I mentioned so far are not going to get better unless we as a community speak up about it. When I think back to all of the different formats that we've had in Duel Links over the years, the vast majority of them have been really enjoyable to me. If you remind me of a deck from Duel Links past, I'm more likely than not going to think back to those days with fondness. Even the Orchist and Odd Eyes days, I remember games being really exciting and back and forth, but now and then shit is going to be unhealthy. I am at peace with the reality that there is always going to be a best deck that's better than the rest. Sometimes we'll get lucky and multiple decks will be the best deck in the game, but that's still decks being better than others. That's just a natural part of any competitive game. I don't take issue at one deck being better than others. I don't even take that much issue with tier 0 formats, even though I still don't think that they should exist. What I take issue with is cards and strategies that outright prevent the other player from playing the game. Whatever form it takes, I just hate it. It could be having so many interruptions that nobody can break your board. It could be having lingering effects or floodgates that stop the opponent from making plays. It doesn't matter what form it takes. A two-player game should be playable by two players, rather than just being decided by who went first and who opened what card. The vast majority of the time in Duel Links, the interruptions are impactful, but can be broken through, and just putting up interruptions isn't going to guarantee a win, and breaking a board is also not going to guarantee a win. Both are just impactful plays to give you an edge in the duel. I think sometimes we can forgive a format with one-sided duels happening now and then, as long as they end and ultimately bring the game back to its normal interactive state. Realistically, it doesn't happen that often in Duel Links. We just got out of the most floodgatey format we've had, and now we are in a much healthier situation, with the main floodgates being things that are much easier to prevent, with things like hand traps and board breakers, and some of the best decks in the game right now have inherent ways of dealing with floodgates, making them much less favorable. I really like this format, the same as I like almost every Duel Links format, but there are still things about the Duel Links game mode itself that annoy me. First of all, the timer you get on ranked is the same timer we had back when the most extensive combo you could do was special summoning a single toon Dark Magician Girl and attacking for 2k twice. If Konami wants to give us combo decks, why aren't they increasing the timer? We should be able to think about our moves rather than just going ham just so that the timer doesn't beat us. If we have multiple options, we should be able to consider those options, because if we have to fight both the timer and our opponent, it's a 2v1, and the opponent might just get a free win because we committed the crime of considering what play would be the best one to make for the situation. God forbid a strategy-based game give us time to strategize. I also think it's weird that after all of this time, there's still only one consistent speed duels rank system. We get turbo duels as an event sometimes, and it's generally just ranked with better rewards for a little bit and a slightly higher chance of seeing synchro deck. We also got legacy duels, which never accurately represent the legacy formats of Duel Links. They just take you to a particular part of the anime and let you play modern skills to crush absolutely everything. Honestly, legacy duels is always ass, but if they made an actual legacy format of Duel Links that was always played as an alternative to ranked, that could be a true representation of the old Duel Links days, and if they could make a turbo duels ranked as another alternative to ranked as well, each with their own card pools and ban lists, then there could be a lot less burnout on Duel Links. If you don't like speed duels right now, your only option is to stop playing or play an entirely different game that doesn't have the complexity that we got into Yu-Gi-Oh! For in the first place. You might have seen our video talking about skills where I basically defended the way that Konami was handling skills. You know when you have a friend that everybody talks shit about and you defend them, and then that friend lets you down by proving everybody right? Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Since that video dropped, so many skills have been given to decks that didn't need them, and it's honestly ridiculous as hell. I still believe in everything I said in that video, but Konami might have shifted upgrade from making skills for decks that need them to just making skills for everyone. And I don't think I'm down for that, especially with the agent skill being as incredibly pushed as it was. Like I say in that video, the exceptions are exceptions and don't represent every skill, but I just hope skills like that don't become the norm eventually. So I've talked about the greedy things Konami does in Duel Links, and I've talked about things I don't like about the speed duel format in Duel Links, but these things are things that I'm overall optimistic about because for the most part, I see improvements happening gradually. But there are things about this game that in my opinion aren't being improved upon whatsoever, and I find it very difficult to find a silver lining. Let's go to the shop real quick. The main character of the whole franchise, Yugi Muto, has 11 playmats dedicated entirely to him or his monsters, including multiple animated playmats. That makes sense, he's the main character after all. Sato Kaiba has 2 as well, one of them being a beautiful animated Blue Eyes playmat. Jaden, the main character of GX, has 2 animated playmats dedicated to his monsters. Yuma, the main character of Zexal, got an awesome animated playmat for his Gagagas and another for his Utopia monsters. Arc V's main character Yuya got an animated playmat for his Perform My Pals and another for his Odd Eyes monsters. Playmaker, the main character of Reigns, got an animated playmat for his Link monsters and it looks dope as hell. All of the protagonists of course have playmats with each other and with other characters. But tell me why Yusei doesn't have a single animated playmat dedicated to him at all. No Junk Love, no Synchron Love, or even Stardust Dragon in his evolutions. If you want a Yusei animated playmat, you got no choice but to settle for him being an afterthought in playmats with other protagonists on it. I don't understand why my favorite character Yusei is getting shafted, bro. It's been nearly 6 years since 5Ds was added to Duel Links, and new characters get to have animated playmats, but not Yusei? What's even worse is that Shaq, Crow, Akiza, Paradox, Kalin, and even Team Ragnarok, who aren't even in the game, all have animated playmats, but somehow the main character of 5Ds doesn't have a single animated playmat to himself. I've even heard Jaden fans talking about some
Jaden needs more animated playmats.
Bruh, can us Yusei fans get 1 before you get your 3rd, bruh? Like, come on, man, this is ridiculous. In conclusion, until Yusei gets an animated playmat, this game sucks and I hate it. Have yourselves a good one, guys, and I've been Undead from Team 6K, signing out.
Hey, why they gotta hate on me?
I'm just playing. I am really upset about the Yusei playmat thing, but I don't hate this game. Everything I said in this video is just things I don't like that I think can be fixed, because if you love something, then you should want the best for it. You should want it to be the best it can be. But what do you guys hate about Duel Links? And do you think I should make a follow-up talking about all the great things about this game? And if you like this video, then slap like now, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the bell to get notified next time we drop a video. Have yourselves a good one, guys, and I've been Undead from Team 6K, signing out. For real this time.
Hey, why they gotta hate on me? I done got me 250,000 views and they still saying they low key. They ain't wanna come work with the kid, but I'm flexing with Zay on beats. How they ask for a spot at the gym, but they leave all the weight on me. I don't ask them to wait on me. They would ask where they gon' be with a song if they wanted the weatherman. I ain't asking to pay no fees. She was homeless and needed a spot. I ain't ask her to pay no lease. I ain't ask her to say no please. I ain't ask her to make no cheese. Scream fake but it ain't on me. Got clean so it ain't no streets. Why green if it ain't no keeps? Brought cream so it ain't no beef. My team say it ain't no chief. My demon they hang on me. They seemingly ain't no peace. I seen him, he ain't no beast. For real.